Today we're going to be touching on a subject which some of you may be like, oh my gosh, did they really go there? And yes, we are going there. And we're going to be talking about men bashing. What does that mean? Some of you may be going, what the heck is men bashing? Men bashing is when we are constantly saying negative things about men and constantly trying to tear them down for who they are. Now, before any of you get triggered, I do want to call out one thing. We understand that some men, because they are abusive, do deserve to get some bashing. So we're not talking about those. Those men need to have a lot of rehabilitation and need to figure out how to be a true man. And by beating on their women and doing so many of those other things, that's not the type of man we're talking about. We are talking about men that are honorable people, men that really do contribute to our society, to our families, to our communities. And yet, simply because they are a man, now they fall into this general realm of, hey, let's pick on the guy this time. And we always seem to have someone that needs to be the boogeyman, someone that we need to pick on. And in recent history, it's all about the men bashing. And we have we are pretty passionate about this topic because we believe that you don't need to bash someone in order to divide and conquer. What's the reason for trying to divide us? Trying to divide us between genders and such? There really are no reasons unless you have nefarious ones. And it also really, what are we doing in terms of setting examples for our sons and daughters if as a society all we're going to do is tear down half of our population? What's the benefit in that? So I'd like to, open this up for conversation because there's so much more I could say in the introduction. So what are your thoughts, Sandra?
Wow, this is a hot topic.
It is a hot topic.
So when we talked about doing this topic, I was kind of excited because I will be very honest with our audience. I dislike men bashing. I do not watch sitcoms where they make men look like they're stupid all the time and put them down. I don't like it. I don't believe we should put our men down because if they weren't important, God wouldn't have created them.
Correct.
And we can't have babies without them. Now, I know you're going to tell me you can go to a sperm bank, but you still need sperm from a man. You don't make it. You don't manufacture it. You have to get it from a donor, and that's a gentleman. Okay? It's a man. You cannot get sperm from a woman. Okay? So we need our men, not just to make babies, but to be partners. I love men. Okay? Let me just put it out there. I think men are made in God's image. They're awesome. When a man takes care of himself, he's clean shaven, he builds his muscles, he takes care of his family, he goes to work, he cleans the house, he cooks dinner, he does the barbecue. No, that's my kind of a man.
And he helps take care of the children.
And he helps take care of the children. When my sons were little, I tried to be the do-it-all mom, and my husband said, honey, I need to learn to do it too. And so I had to step aside and allow my husband to participate in doing that. And I just want to put a shout out there for Lance Brown, who I think is truly a real man. I love him to death. And I don't believe in man bashing my husband. And I don't believe in man bashing any man, as long as they're doing what God ordained them to do. An abusive man probably was abused. So that goes back a little bit further, and it looks at the parents. What are we teaching our boys when we bash men? I have sons, so I'm teaching them to be princes, and that when people bash men, It's not about them. They're having a problem. That's how I feel about the subject, Laura. I can get very passionate. I'm restraining myself right now.
I can see that. Venoria.
That's all I have to say
For now.
for now.
Venoria, what are your thoughts?
I would imagine all of us around this table, we are not talking about the man that Sandra described. You know, we are not talking about men that do what they're supposed to do.
Exactly.
Right. But there are a lot of men that disrespect women. And I'm not talking about husband and wife. I'm talking about men in the workplace. I'm talking about a man you could meet on the street. There's some people that are just rude and uncouth. And I don't care who they are. I don't care who they are related to. I don't care if they are my children. If I'm married to them, I don't care who they are. Because I'm a firm believer that right is right and wrong is wrong. I do not generalize. I do not group people together. I do not stereotype. But if I see something and I hear somebody is pacifying that situation, I am not going to agree with that person. I am very vocal, and I will call a spade, okay? So if you, as a man, do not want to get under or get called out by Venoria, okay, then do what you're supposed to do as a man that you are, that God created you to be, okay? Whether to your spouse, to your children, to your mother. There are some men that disrespect their parents, okay? So I do not believe in men bashing, but I do believe in calling out what needs to be called out.
Agreed. And that is more from an individual perspective than the generalization of what we're seeing in society and culture today, especially in the media, of continued men bashing. And so I completely agree with you. And we do have to call misbehavior out when it needs to be called out, because at the end of the day, as we talk so often, it's about respect.
That's right.
So we need to have men respect those around them, whether they're men or women. And we as women need to respect the men as well for who they are. As I started out, not starting on the trigger of there are men that need to be bashed individually, not as a generalization.
Right.
So I think the other thing too is so often that men bashing, as women that bash on someone over and over, eventually a man's going to be like, well, what does it matter? Right? So if I'm going to get bashed on whether I'm good or I'm not good, well, then what does it matter? Unless that person has really that within them to always remain good. There are some men that we're going to push over and they're going to be like, well, listen, if I'm going to be called that anyways,
right,
then I might as well be that and have it become a self-fulfilling prophecy. So we have to understand that we as women have the power to encourage the behavior that we want to encourage. And I would say we should encourage the positive behavior. And instead of saying, honey, I can't believe it, you did this wrong, say, hey, let me really highlight those things that he did right. And then continue to encourage those behaviors. And I think as a society, we need to take that into effect as well. Because if we're continually men bashing and generalizing, well, why aren't we generalizing the good things as well?
Right.
Exactly.
And I try to do that in every aspect of my life. For example, you just mentioned something about focusing on the good that they do. It can be said also of your children.
Yes, absolutely.
You have a child, and because that child did not get an A, you put that child down. Oh, you stupid, couldn't get an A, and Susie down the street, she got an A, and you end up with a D. It's like, I think people are who they are, and the same pattern they have with their children, they're gonna have with their spouse, they're gonna have with everybody. Okay, I just think it's a trend, it's a pattern, so if you call your child stupid because that child doesn't do something right or up to par that you think is up to par, the same way you're going to treat your spouse. That's the way I see it.
I think we've emerged, we have evolved in the society from a society where men were so dominant. And even as we think about global women enrichment and some of our earlier sessions, when we talked about if you don't want us at your table, we'll make our own table and we'll make our voice heard. I think we all are aware of a generation where women were not heard. The men were the ones who were dominant. They were the ones who went out and worked. They provided for the family. Many women stayed home. The woman was not valued for her education or her knowledge. Maybe some women didn't even go all the way in their education. We know many stories of that. We know that women, even if they had careers, would give it up to take care of the children, and the man seemed to be the glorified provider and the one everybody lauded and honored. We have evolved from that society. And as I've moved into this culture from a Jamaican culture, we saw our Caribbean men coming into the United States and not thriving like the professionals who came as females from the islands. And particularly in my profession, we would have many nurses who came to this country, and all of a sudden, they were making more money than their husbands. Now, that does not go well in the Jamaican society. So to come here and see that happen, it affected many families. And families who were able to work with that and still have respect for each other, they had better partnerships. Some marriages couldn't bear it and they dissolved. But women have evolved, and all of us sitting at this table have we're caught in that splice where we were a part of that and now we're a part of this. And we have to be the ones who bring balance to those two extremes, where we're not the wives who sit at home. And Laura, you're phenomenal with what you do, and we've talked about that many times. But we're not the wives who sit at home with the children and the man goes to work. And similarly, we are not the women who are always working and the man sits at home. You know, there are some exceptions, but generally speaking, we don't have to become so violent now that we are now part of the workforce. I think it's more important for us to build team spirit. We're partners. I'm going out to work, you're going out to work. Let's both come home together and do the housework too. You know, I remember earlier days when I would feel guilty that I'm not cleaning the house and I'm not cooking. And my husband said, we're both going to work. We both can cook. We both can clean, you know. And it became a partnership. We both were doing everything together. And I've tried to teach that to my children. And I watch my son now, who is married, doing these things that he saw his mom and dad doing. And this is a beautiful thing. I have sons. I have to be very careful how I treat their father in front of them and behind their backs.
Yes.
So that they have a good picture of what a man should be, how a man should be respected. They know they have a powerful mama. Don't get me wrong. Mm-hmm. They know mama will move heaven and earth for them. But I also have a responsibility to treat my husband with respect so that my boys will be respectful to their wives and expect to be treated with respect. And I think this is what is important about us in this society, is that we remember that every action we do has a consequence. And we're contributing to the next generation. So it's very important what we say to our husbands, what we say to our male co-workers, etc. And I agree completely with Venoria that if someone is out of line and disrespectful, we must call it out. We must speak up. We must defend those who feel less fortunate or feel like they can't speak up for themselves. We must speak up for them.
Agreed. And I think that as women, we do have a responsibility in the workplace to speak up for bad behavior. So many women feel, well, I can't do that. It will jeopardize my job. So I understand that. However, if you want to have that position of respect, you do need to stand up for yourself. And I will take it back to my mother in the workplace. So this must have been, I think the example she was giving me, it was back in the 80s when my mother worked at a bank. Not the front of the house of the bank, but the back of the house of the bank. And she worked with this man who thought he was really God's gift to women and walked around as if he was. And he was making it a point to say things and do things to women that many women felt uncomfortable with. And at one point, my mom was going through, she was in the cafeteria at the building of the bank, and she's going through, and this man walks up and grabs her behind. My mother turned around with the tray that she had in her hand and smacked him with the tray. And she said, at that moment, I thought to myself, I just smacked the executive of this bank with a lunch tray in front of everyone in the cafeteria. I will likely be fired. So she prepared to face that consequence. And he's like, what did you do that for? And she said, because you grabbed my behind and that is disrespectful. And she went on to tell me everything she said. And she said to me, had I not stood up for myself in that moment, it would have condoned what he did.
Exactly.
And he would have continued to do it.
That's right.
And I have to tell you, we did not grow up rich. So it's not like my mom smacked him saying, oh, okay, if I lose my job, I lose my job. We were truly a 2-income family. And if my mom had lost her job for standing up, it would have been very difficult for our family. But, that was an example.
The end of the story, she did not
lose her job.
Okay.
No, and end of story, she did not lose her job. And actually, she had other women come up to her and say, thank you. I didn't have the courage for doing that. Right. So I think it's important that we do call out that behavior, and bringing it back to men bashing. We can't generalize.
No, you cannot.
The same way we can't generalize and say all Hispanics this, all Blacks that. We can't say all men this either.
No, you cannot.
So we need to understand that we all contribute to society and we all deserve the respect in that contribution.
I just want to hear your guys' opinion on it. Who determines that it is the woman that has to get up and make the bed, has to get up and make breakfast, has to get up and come home and cook?
The culture you grow up in.
Because you know why?
Does that.
Because you grow up in a home, yes, and you see that happening, and you decide this is the way it's supposed to be. So if you dare go against that, then you are like the bad person.
If you cannot cook, you're not getting married. In Jamaica, when you're getting married as a female, you better know how to cook. The way to a man's heart is through his stomach, is what I was told.
Well,
Your mom actually taught you to, sorry, Laura, your mom actually taught you to cook?
I learned to cook in high school. I did cookery in high school.
Oh, we call it home economics.
I did cookery in high school.
Okay, so let me just share. My mother does not know how to cook. My sister does not know how to cook. The person who woke up and made breakfast for us on Saturdays and Sundays was my father.
There you go.
Now, I will tell you this. If you look at the Hispanic, Latino culture, it is very much Jamaican, where there are very set roles for what the husband does and what the wife does. However, bringing it back to what we were talking about earlier is, as a couple, you decide what is good for you.
Exactly.
So, it is a marriage is a partnership.
It's a partnership.
And the same way as in business, you decide this partner does this part of the business and this partner does the other. That's what you do in a marriage as well. So if it had been for winning my father's heart by her cooking, my mom would have never gotten that heart. I will tell you that. And if Lisa, my sister, had to win Manny's heart from cooking, that would have never happened either. They don't like to cook.
I love to cook.
I love to cook.
And it gives me great pleasure to cook something that my husband is not expecting. And he comes out or he comes in through the door and he goes, ooh, this smells like home. So it should be that feeling of gratitude, of shared responsibility. As much as I grew up in that culture, my mom worked. My mom is a nurse, and she used to work the night shift, so she was always home when we got home. And my dad sometimes would work night shift and come home. So I knew my mom worked, but to me, my mom was always home, but she did work.
Right.
And when we were at school, she got her sleep, and then she would be up there ready for us. And mom cooked and dad cooked. But I understood in our culture that the female had this role. And so I brought that into my own marriage, even though we tried to become the partners. And over the years, that has improved, but I always took great pride in my ability to make a meal. And I learned very early that cooking doesn't have to be difficult. It doesn't need to take hours, But if we bring that back to man bashing, it is the concept of roles and the distortion of that leads to male bashing. And I think if we as human beings can figure out the roles and understand that we're partners and that nothing is black and white, that, and I say that and I laugh because there are some Christians who would disagree with me.
Yes.
Okay? And would not appreciate that I am the kind of person as a female who loves to work. And I do work and spend a lot of, look at us here. We do our recordings for long hours. We have families at home. And we do this. We love what we do. And here's the good news, listeners. Our husbands support us. Our children are proud of us. And don't get me wrong. I think we need to be careful, Laura and Venoria, that we don't portray to the audience that we haven't been upset with our men at times. We haven't been disappointed with our men at times. But that doesn't mean we go around treating men like they're a stereotype that needs to be put down. Right. I think it's an opportunity to work together to build up.
I have a question because I have maybe she will not be listening. Anyways, so just say your husband is not kind to you. You wash the clothes, you make the bed, you sweep the floor, you cook, you do all of those things. And you're underappreciated. So if your husband is doing all these, if your husband is not appreciative of you, do you still continue to do the laundry, do the dinner, and all of those
Let
things?
me ask a question. Are women being appreciative of men when they go out and work hard and come in? Do we say, thank you, honey, for doing all the work and paying all the bills?
This particular person that I know, that person does just about when I said everything, I mean every single thing for her spouse. They've been married for, I can't say how long.
But my question is, does that mean that the man is going out and working and bringing in the money while she's doing
actually,
all of
both
that?
of them are, I can't say either. But just said, it doesn't matter whether
both of them are working outside the home.
Right, whether or not both of them are working.
And when they come home, she's the only one doing the work in the home.
Correct.
So there needs to be a therapy session and some conversation.
And on top of that, she's not very polite. So would my question to you and Laura, would your spouse treating you that way, would you continue to do all of those beautiful things for him?
Who am I doing it for? Is it just for him or is it for me? Am I keeping my house beautiful for me and him or just for him?
Well, so forget about the house because let's say the dinner, because you talk about your dinner that you cook for him, and so let's talk about doing his dinner and doing his laundry. And he comes home, he doesn't even tell you good afternoon, good night.
No, that marriage has a problem.
I mean that goes beyond.
I'm asking a question. If your husband would ever one day do that, would you still be inspired to cook for him, do his laundry, cut his toenails, do all of those things?
Oh,
Cutting
no.
his toenails.
I'm not cutting his toenails, number one. But number two, I would be having a conversation.
Yes.
Because if the marriage that I have today, which is Armando cooks just as much as I do, Armando
Yes.
cleans just as much as I do, and
That's
one
right.
day it becomes a total disrespect, and he says, cut my toenails, but it becomes a total disrespect. I'm going to say time out.
I'm out.
You
Let's
know?
have a conversation.
So that, no. In that case, it's a conversation. I will tell you just quick story. I do know someone who was in a similar situation. And after she tried and tried, she said, I'm done. She went on strike for a week. She didn't do the laundry. She didn't do the cooking. She didn't do the cleaning. She did nothing. And when her husband said, honey, what is going on here? The house is a mess. You haven't cooked dinner. It's been all fast food. Like, what is going on here? She said, until you start to appreciate me, I am not going to do those things. So either you do them, we do them together, or you appreciate me. Things started to change in her house. I won't tell you they changed instantly, but she did. She went on strike.
Right.
So, in terms of men bashing, those are great conversations and questions to have in terms of the relationship between a man and a woman. And we really established that it's about looking at the individual and the individual situation. It's not about a generalization. The same way we don't want to be bashed as being women and being called the B word because we're a woman. Let's keep that in mind. Men don't want to be bashed either. And there is really nothing to be accomplished by trying to beat someone down and bully them. Because at the end of the day, we are all partners and we are all the fabric of this society, the fabric of our families and our communities. So we ask that you please don't engage in the men bashing. If there is a man in your life that really does deserve to have you sit down and talk to them and have others maybe help you talk to them, then have that conversation. If you need to have a conversation in the workplace, have that conversation. At the end of the day, we all do have a choice. It's just a matter of when we make that choice and the time and place. I know that we all have individual reasons for putting up with the things that we put up with. So we are not here to judge, the same way we're asking you not to judge men and treat them on their own merit. So thank you for joining us tonight. We'd love to hear from you. You can reach out to us at gwenrichment.com. Take care.